Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi dan salam sejahtera kepada Bapak Ibu peserta Simposium Regional Pengembang Teknologi Pembelajaran. Masih semangat ya ini karena masih pagi ya termasuk. Ya Bapak Ibu, saya yang akan menjadi moderator pada sesi dari Microsoft pada pagi hari ini. Bersama kita sudah hadir pembicara dari Microsoft, beliau Mr. Don Carlson dan ini Mas Albert ya. How are you, Mr. Carlson?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's such a great honor to have you here with us today. First of all, I would like to introduce you to the audience. Ya, beliau Mr. Don Carlson adalah Direktur Pendidikan Microsoft untuk wilayah Asia Pasifik. Pada hari ini beliau akan menyajikan, memaparkan materi mengenai Education Transformation Framework. Untuk mempersingkat waktu, kita langsung saja ya mendengarkan paparan dari beliau. Okay, welcome, Mr. Carlson.
Great, thank you so much, and good morning. I'm going to come down here. I can't stand up there. Has it been a good morning so far for everybody? Yeah, very good. Oh, fantastic. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today from a couple of different perspectives. The first perspective is as a teacher. I used to teach. I taught in Canada and I taught in Australia, and that's where I started my career. I did some lecturing. My master's degree is in education, and I've always been in the education area. I'm also going to talk to you as a parent, and as a parent of 3 girls who have been through the education system and are now 2 are in university and 1 is still in school. And I have a very specific perspective on education for my children. And the third perspective I want to give you is as a business person and somebody who's been in the education field for 25 years in different corporations, and give you those perspectives. The education space, first of all in Asia Pacific, and what's happening obviously in Indonesia, and some of the work we've been doing here with some of you even here in the audience as well. So just to start with, is this not working? Oh, there we go. Thank you. So what we wanted to do is show you a little bit about what we're seeing. And this is one report I've seen in the past here in the region that I think is quite relevant. So what I want you to do is just think about why. Why are we trying to change? Why is it that you're here? Why are you here today? What are you here to do? What is it you're here to learn? And when I look across the region, I find that there's a number of issues that are coming out, not only in this country, but in many countries around the world, and they're very, very similar. I won't go through all 10 of these, but there's a couple that come out that are very specific. One area here is youth unemployment. That's a key issue, not just here in Indonesia, but it's a key issue in New Zealand, it's a key issue in the US, it's a key issue in Vietnam. There's a number of issues that are happening. The other key area here is the STEM subjects, or the science, technology, engineering, and math area, where many countries in this region are talking about wanting to do more with STEM. And another key area we're seeing here is, are the students that are graduating and coming through the school system, are they relevant for the industry and for the commercial organizations that exist today? Not only from the school, but from the universities. Are the universities producing students that are employable? And this is a big issue we're seeing around the world. The US student loans. So the amount of student loan debt in the United States is $1.3 trillion. It's the single biggest debt outside of home mortgages. Students need jobs. They need to pay off their debt. It's a big, big issue, and it's no different than many parts of the world. So are the graduates, are your students equipped to come out into the workforce and be ready with skills that the industry is looking for? Next slide. As we look in the region, we see three key areas. Every country has a component of this in their education strategy. So when you look at what you're trying to achieve today, what we're trying to do is look at it holistically. When we at Microsoft look at education, we don't look at a computer. We don't look at learning content separately. We need to look at things holistically. And the biggest issue, and one of the main areas that we look at, is this quality of education. Governments around the world are trying to improve quality of education. And where does the quality start? The quality starts with us in the classroom. We need to focus on teacher capacity. We need to focus on making our teachers stronger and equipping them with the tools they need to be effective in the classroom. We have to do that. We have to equip our school leaders, people that are running schools. They need to have information to be able to run their schools effectively. Because any change in an education system starts with the classroom, and it's the teacher that it's going to start with. Those of you that have been in classrooms, and I know almost all of you have, you play such a pivotal role in changing behavior, in changing the education system. Government can change policy, curriculum can change, but it's really up to the teacher to enable that change in the classroom. And this is why we see this quality of education being a very, very key area. Next slide. Thank you. The other area is skills for employability. I mentioned it before. Are we producing, go back one slide. Skills for employability. I mentioned that before. 21st century learning. Many of you as designers in here, course designer, curriculum designers, technology designers, what is it you're designing for? Why are you changing what you're changing? This idea of 21st century skills, what does that mean? What kind of skills? Collaboration skills, communication skills. How are we enabling that? How are we enabling a teacher to achieve that in a classroom full of 30, 40, 50 students? And how do we measure that? And at Microsoft, we think the use of technology in some instances will help enable that more effectively. And that becomes a critical piece for what we do. Next slide, please. Equity and access. This is a big, big issue around the region. How are we ensuring that all students have access to quality education, regardless of where they live, doesn't matter what island they're on, doesn't matter their gender, doesn't matter if they have access to technology. How are we ensuring everybody has equal access? And these are the three key areas we see, and every minister and every government agency that we find works within these some way. Different priorities, different countries, but essentially this is what we're finding. Next slide. So if you were to look at your classrooms and what you're designing for and the changes you're trying to make, I guess the question I have is, what does transformation look to you? What does it look like? What does a classroom of the future look like? If you didn't have any restrictions, if you didn't have any restrictions on people, on resources, what would it look like? And what we're seeing here is the ability to actually help students learn regardless of where they live, regardless of whether they're in a classroom or outside a classroom. having access to key people that can help teach them. For example, we have schools in Korea who will connect to the Antarctic base station and the scientists down there through Skype that actually explain what's happening in the Antarctic. You have the top scientists down there explaining to school children what's happening with the ice caps, what's happening down there with the global warming. And it gives a very different perspective than any teacher could give. So this ability to be able to bring experts from around the world into your own classroom, different technologies. I have policy that's coming in. I have curriculum. I have content that's being built. I have platforms where the content is being shared out to students and to teachers. There is modern teaching and learning on the side, intelligent environments, and the far right one is the technology blueprint. These 4 key areas starts to look at how you actually create a strategy for enablement of a holistic view to your education systems. Next slide, please. And the next one. One more. Thank you. So on this one, this framework that we've built, and this is online. You can go up and you can download it. You can see all the white papers. You can see the resources that we have available. But this is actually a framework that builds on world's best practices. We've consulted with over 130 leading academics on this. We've looked at areas that actually look at world's best practice, and we've looked at research. And this isn't Microsoft. We don't think that this is our framework. It's a framework that's been built in partnership with many organizations, many agencies, many ministries, and of course, many leading educators. And that has been the key area for us as we move forward. If we go to the next slide, I don't know if you're going to see this very well. Next slide. Yeah, I apologize for this. You're not going to be able to see this very well. We'll make sure you have all the slides, though. We'll make sure you get a copy of these. But all this slide is showing is a little bit more understanding of what it is in behind of what it means to be intelligent environments. And it has a little bit more detail. The one on the top, modern teaching and learning, it talks about curriculum assessment. It talks about immersive experiences and personalized learning. One of the reasons we talk about personalized learning, and this is creating learning plans, and those of you that are doing instructional design, or you're doing curriculum design, or you're looking at content and materials, the today and the students of tomorrow continue to be engaged. We continue to make sure they stay in school. We continue to make sure they're excited about their learning. And that's what we at Microsoft do as we look to our technology, is using the technology to engage and ensure that students are continuing their education. If you want to know more about any of these type of tools, the guys outside, and of course Dr. Hobart, will be able to help you with any of that. I didn't go through the tools today, but there's plenty out there for you. With that, I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning and for your attention. And if you need any more information, I will be around today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson, for your informative and interesting presentation. Bapak Ibu, mungkin kemarin sudah diberitahu untuk bisa menyampaikan pertanyaan melalui link yang sudah diberikan ya di http /gg.gg/tanya jawab 2018. Mungkin sudah ada yang memberi pertanyaan kepada Mr. Carlson. Silahkan untuk mengetik pertanyaannya melalui link yang sudah diberikan ya. Panitia mungkin sudah ada pertanyaan melalui link yang sudah diberikan. Mohon untuk ditampilkan.
Bahasa Indonesia saja ya. Tolong diterjemahkan, Mbak ya. Jadi saya tadi tertarik dengan salah satu icon tadi ada Minecraft ya. Yang ada di itu ada salah satu game yang sangat disukai anak-anak sekarang ya, Minecraft ya. Saya dengar Minecraft itu udah masuk kurikulum sekolah di Swedia ya. Memang dan game Minecraft dan kan sudah dibeli Microsoft ya kayaknya. Ya, mungkin bisa ceritakan itu kenapa itu begitu hebatnya sehingga itu menjadi salah satu mata pelajaran di Swedia dan sekarang dibeli oleh Microsoft. Terima kasih.
So, Don, the question was more on Minecraft. So, it's out in the news that one of this Minecraft is being used in schools in Sweden as part of their subject. So he's asking why is it so phenomenal and what's so different about Minecraft compared to others, and why exactly Microsoft bought Minecraft?
I think when we look at, thank you for the question. When we look at Minecraft, one of the reasons why Microsoft looked at it was it is a very immersive learning tool, and it has got millions of users around the world. It has got girls, boys, right from 4, 5, 6 years old, and even up to universities as well. Students will use it, and we see it as a very strong enabler and learning tool and motivator for learning, because it's a fun way to learn. It's a fun way, and those of you that have children, I don't know if you have children that maybe they use Minecraft, and you look at them, and yes, you can use it just as a game, which is why we created the Minecraft Education Edition, because inside that there's learning plans, there's activities that map to curriculum, so that we can create that as a tool that helps with the motivation for students. And I think this is what we're talking about, is having a tool that students are excited to use. And that's what it is to me. It's a learning tool. And the ability for students to create different areas. So for example, in New Zealand, they used it extensively. And they had a project where they brought 20 students into the House of Parliament. And they toured the House of Parliament, the government building, and they were given a project at the end of it. And they said, if you could design a new Parliament building, what would it look like? So the students went away, and in teams, they created a new Parliament in Minecraft. So that whole experience incorporated parts of the curriculum. It incorporated the political nature of the structure, the different parts of the house. It had math in there in terms of the geometry of areas. It had some of the sciences of what they were looking at. And some of the students even created a petting zoo inside the Parliament. They created a water park inside the Parliament. So it's just examples of how you engage students and keep them excited about the learning. And that's how I see Minecraft. It is a tool to be used that engages students extensively. Did that answer it?
Cukup Pak atau kurang? Mungkin kalau saya tambahkan sedikit Pak soal some additions to that. Minecraft ini memang merupakan satu platform permainan yang sudah populer sebelumnya. Yang dilihat oleh Microsoft bahwa ini bisa juga meningkatkan minat anak atau minat pembelajaran, karena bermain sudah banyak penelitiannya menunjukkan bahwa permainan dengan dalam pembelajaran itu dapat meningkatkan motivasi dan hasil belajar juga. Nah, salah satunya dengan Minecraft ini di mana pemainnya sudah jutaan dan terhubung dari seluruh dunia. Nah, ini bisa mendapatkan pengalaman belajar baru bagi siswa. Nah, bedanya Minecraft biasa dengan Minecraft Education, ya seperti tadi Pak Don bilang, ada fitur-fitur khusus di Education Edition. Contohnya, misalkan kalau yang main gamenya biasanya kan kita harus mengumpulkan resources dulu dari awal. Sampai titik tertentu, kalau kita tidak bertahan hidup akan mati. Nah, kalau ini tidak sampai se-ekstrim itu, tapi bisa berkolaborasi dengan teman-teman misalkan di satu kelas, atau berkolaborasi dengan teman-teman dari sekolah lain misalkan. Jadi pembelajarannya bisa lebih luas, lebih ekstensif. Ada tambahan baru yang baru saja keluar, ada yang namanya chemistry pack. Jadi kalau tadi kan dan contoh yang ditampilkan di slide, bagaimana membangun, mengkonstruksi di Minecraft. Chemistry pack ini ada videonya Pak di YouTube kalau mau lihat sesudah ini. Itu bisa membantu cara membuat balon, komponen balon apa saja sih? Ada karet kan, latex, dan ada udara. Latex itu terdiri dari apa strukturnya? Nah, dia bisa membangun sendiri dari situ. Jadi, dan itu masih berkembang terus Pak.
Ya, dan kayaknya di Minecraft tuh kita juga bisa buat game baru di situ, membuat
Bisa,
alat
buat
juga,
sendiri.
buat mesin
Betul.
juga bisa. Ya.
Betul.
Ya.
Ada yang pernah share, dia memberi project ke siswanya untuk membuat konsep pabrik yang ramah lingkungan. Jadi dengan tenaga air dan tenaga surya ini seperti apa, bagaimana pabrik itu bisa berjalan, mereka bisa menuangkannya ke situ.
Makasih banyak. Ya.
Sama Pak.
Karena keterbatasan waktu, mungkin pertanyaannya hanya satu. It's only one question. Oke, Bapak Ibu, mungkin sekian presentasi dari Microsoft. Kita berikan big applause to Mr. Carlson. But before you leave stage, we have something special.
Kepada narasumber dan juga moderator. Baik, berkenan kiranya kepada narasumber untuk menerima cenderamata dari kami yang akan diserahkan oleh Dr. Purwanto. Baik, terima kasih sekali lagi. Boleh kita berikan tepuk tangan untuk narasumber dan juga moderator. Baik, Bapak dan Ibu yang kami hormati, selanjutnya adalah sesi paparan. Kali ini narasumbernya berasal dari Intel, Ibu Shweta Khurana, dengan moderator Ibu Yana Hendarita. Baik, kepada moderator kami silakan untuk membantu. Kami berikan waktu sampai dengan tepat pukul 11:10 waktu Indonesia Barat.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Bapak Ibu semuanya. Ini masih bersama saya ya, untuk sebagai moderator pada sesi kedua dari Intel. Di depan kita sudah siap ya narasumber dari Intel, Mrs. Shweta Khurana. How are you? Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming here to share with us. Beliau adalah Head Corporate Affairs Group Intel Indonesia. Beliau memiliki pengalaman 21 tahun ya di sektor pendidikan. Pada kesempatan kali ini beliau akan memaparkan mengenai materi tentang skills for the future. Ya. Untuk nanti Bapak Ibu selama presentasi boleh nanti untuk mengajukan pertanyaan secara online di link yang sudah diberikan ya di SMS pada masing-masing nomor handphonenya. Nanti akan paparan selama 20 menit dan pertanyaan nanti selama 10 menit. Oke, please welcome Mr. Shweta.
Thank you and good morning. Selamat pagi. It's so nice to see a full house, such a lovely audience. So I'm going to use the next 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes to talk about how are we training the youth in any given country. As she just introduced, I've been in Indonesia for last 2 years, but pardon me, my bahasa is still sedikit, so I will speak in English. But yes, if you ask me questions in bahasa, I'm able to understand that. So we are going to be focusing on how are we educating our children or the youth in Indonesia, and how does it really become relevant for them with the future work environment for which they're gearing up. Can we have the next slide, please? All right. How many of you here heard about the fourth industrial revolution? Just a show of hands. I don't know if any of my previous speakers have covered that or not, so if you can quickly. Okay. So I'm going to talk a bit about the fourth industrial revolution and what it really means. If you go back, and when you go back, I'm saying really go back in the 1760s, there was a power of steam. The steam and the power which defined what the new age world will look like. It just went ahead and changed the entire sphere of the world. Then moving a century ahead came electricity and mass production. So it was the era of the industrialization, where industry started booming. Moving subsequently, we came to the 70s. That's when the digital computing era came on, or in fact the personal computer as we all know it was invented, which changed the way we live, the way we work as we are seeing today. But where we stand today is most crucial, and economists as well as a lot of folks from the technology segment define it as the fourth industrial revolution. So what is happening is in fact a merger between the metaphysical systems of how do we understand how technology is evolving. I'm sure many of you have noticed how sensors are becoming prevalent in our lives. Sensors, sensification, automation. It is there without us even getting to know about it. We walk into the room, the lights can switch themselves on. We walk out, the air conditioning goes off. That is the way. There's something at the back which is working, which today as a user we don't know about it. So the norms have changed. The norms no longer are that are we teaching our students technology? The norm, or today's norm, or tomorrow's workforce requirement norm is, are we teaching our students how to create new technologies? So we are talking about moving a generation from becoming just users of technology to becoming creators of new technologies. Can we have the next one, please? So let's look at what is changing around us. We are becoming hyper-connected. It's a smart world we all live in. We talk about smart nations, we talk about creative nations, and all of that needs one common essential factor, which is smart citizens or smart youth. who today are learning to become the workforce for tomorrow. And in that case, we see that a lot of demographic shifts happening across countries. Talk about Indonesia, has such a huge demographic advantage. How are we really going to utilize this advantage a decade from now? Are we training our youth? Are we giving them the adequate skills that they are able to become able workforce for tomorrow? There's a rise of smart machinery. When you talk about industrialization, in fact, I was in Semarang just yesterday, and I saw how the factories there are becoming far more connected and smart than they were a year before. You had a lot of owners talking about how they're going to automate the entire build scenario for fabrication in those factories. Again, this means that the skills required for tomorrow will be radically different from the skills the workers have today. There is, of course, a lot of disruption happening. Disruption is a common word which we come across almost every industry we talk about today, right? From the Gojeks to the Ubers to the Grabs, etc. You talk about the hospitality industry, you talk about the tourism industry. A simple disruption example is what someone shared with me. They'd gone to the Komodo Island, and they realized that the tourist guide there who's using a drone to just capture the movement of his tourists is earning 10x of what the other tourist guides are earning. 10x. That's a disruption in itself. And then we come to urbanization. It's an impact which we are seeing extremely well in Jakarta, and the minute you go beyond Jakarta, you see that impact coming in as well. And all this means for any given country at any given point in time, there's a war for talent. There's a war for talent. There's a war for people who have the right skill sets. There's a war for people who believe in building their intellectual capacities to solve local problems in an innovative manner. And to get our children to reach to that space, what we need is new skills. Can we go on to the new one, please? So, if you're preparing a generation for jobs which haven't been created as yet, jobs which don't even exist, what do we teach them? Or how do we teach them? Or how do we get them to prepare for those jobs? I mean, what you can see here are some jobs which we hadn't heard about, let's say just 5 years before. We didn't know what a social entrepreneur would obviously evolve into, or we didn't know why a sustainability manager is required in each and every industry. People are talking on a very, very different stream of how to conserve power, how to conserve water. We just had Water Day, and it's one of the fastest vanishing resources across the face of this earth. So what do we do? So if these jobs are there now, they may not be there 10 years from now. And how do we get our students to prepare for these jobs? Go to the next one, please. Now, the future is going to be interconnected. It's going to become a mesh of multiple things. Things like mobile devices, data, people, and algorithms. So when you're talking about this interconnectivity, you're talking about this entire movement which is happening. What does it really mean for, let's say, a 17-year-old youth who's studying in an SMK in Yogyakarta? How would he gear up for employability post that? Artificial intelligence, self-driving cars, automation across industries, these are common terms. That's a reality of today, right? How do we prepare a youth for that? Go to the next one, please. And the next one, because this I've already spoken about. Okay. So let's talk about the skills which are required. Now, there is an organization called the Future Skills 2020, which has gone ahead and identified what are the skills our youth would require. So, if seeing the drivers of change of what our future would look like, whether you talk you talk about computational world, you you talk about a globally connected world, superstructured organizations, super flat organizations, then there are certain skills which have been identified of how youth can gear up towards that. And those skills are listed below. So I'm not going to actually read through this, but this white paper is available online for anybody who wishes to get more details on what those skills are and how to achieve them. There was this entire norm when we were talking about 21st century skills. This takes it a step further from there. So when you're talking about collaboration, creativity, design thinking, this takes it a little further, saying that if our reality of us living tomorrow in a hyper-connected global world is true, if you're going to be living in with machines, then we must know how to manage them and help solve the local problems which we see around us using that knowledge. Can we go to the next one, please? Now, there is this new conversation which is happening. It said, well, you need to know software, of course. You need to know coding, programming, data science, big data, app development, gamification, which is absolutely huge in Indonesia. Beyond that, you also need to know technology creation. So just software skills, plus add another flavor to it, which is how to learn how to create new technologies, which means basically picking up anything and making it smarter. It can be a pen which you're holding. You can make it smarter. I've seen children in, this is one of our innovation hubs in Yogyakarta, children again from an SMA who converted a simple coffee cup into a smart coffee cup, which means that there is a small radiance around it which will tell me how hot or cold my coffee is in that cup. So if I'm working and I just want to gauge the temperature of the coffee before I actually pick it up and sip and burn my tongue, I have a smart mug which tells me that. And completely built by children themselves. So the new additions which are happening to our world, whether that is 3D printing, robotics, drones, wearables, it means not only how to deal with all of this, but how to create it and make it useful in a given context. And the third piece of what will help us change the conversation are foundational skills. So you have the coding skills, you have the physical computational skills, which is your technology creation, and then you have the foundational skills, which talks about how do you ensure that youth develop a growth mindset, lifelong learning skills, design thinking, global citizenship, etc. It's a combination of all these three, which would possibly is what we at Intel would term is innovation thinking or innovation possibility. A combination of software, technology creation, as well as the foundational skills. And that is what helps us build young innovators. Can we go to the next one, please? So I'm going to just share a small example with you. It's a video of a woman who really inspires me. And let's see what she did with all the three skills when she learned.
With more than 17,000 islands, Indonesia has abundant ocean resources. Still, many Indonesian fishermen live in poverty. Fina Ermawati Siam grew up in the remote Bulakumba, where she was one of few girls fortunate enough to pursue an education. While in school, she enrolled in an Intel digital literacy program and began volunteering to teach basic computing skills to other youth. Still, she longed to do more for her community.
So many fishermen always say that a technology is not good for them. So I want to make something to combine the traditional and a technology.
Fina joined an Intel Innovation Bootcamp where she acquired skills that enabled her to create Jukutek, a device that helps fishing families increase their income. The solar-powered system incorporates a development board and sensors and sends a text message to fishermen when the catch in a room pond, a traditional fish aggregating device, reaches sufficient size. This enables fishermen to save time and fuel costs by avoiding trips to locations where fish are not present. Jukutek also notifies potential customers when fresh fish are available and links to an online portal that markets products made from fish. The Indonesian government, in the meantime, the Bulukumba Innovation Hub. There she continues to inspire and empower other young people to become innovators like herself.
So the story about Finna, a young girl who not only learned these new age skills on her own, but also went ahead and ensured that her community it benefits from these skills. And in two ways. The first, she figured out a local problem which required a solution. And nobody external to that environment could actually walk in and create that solution for them. It's best if the youth themselves got together and build that solution. She figured out what she needs to build that solution, got all the required help, which includes in terms of mentors, learning about physical computing, trying to figure out how to put it all together, creating prototypes, and not one, but a couple of generation of prototypes to ensure that they work well. And then she went ahead and implemented the solution, and today she's managed to ensure that her fishing community actually increases their prosperity because of that implementation. And that is why when she went ahead and showcased a solution to Beckraft, Ministry of Creativity, and the other ministries, they committed to her that they're going to help her take this entire innovation to new fishing villages. But more than that, she went back to the government and she realized that why is it so critical for youth to learn innovation skills? And in order to enable that, she created the Innovation Hub at Bulukumba. If you're on Instagram, you can just go and see the kind of activities which happen there. It's really surprising how youth figure out, okay, this is a problem which is happening in my area, and it can be very small. Let me give you another example. Two girls from Yogyakarta. Yogyakarta gets rain almost every day, right? And it can just rain at any point in time. So these girls had a working mother, and their problem is that when they came back home, their clothes were never dry because they were left outside to dry in the sun, but it used to rain during the day, so every evening they used to come back and still get wet clothes. They went to the Innovation Hub in Yogyakarta, and they said, okay, we don't want to look at big problems, we want to solve the problem right there in our house, help us do it. They created a prototype, which is a retractable clothesline on their own. And these girls are just in grade 11th. And incidentally, they don't want to become scientists. They don't even know what the word STEM possibly means, but they innovated. That retractable clothesline became so popular that not only did other children want that in their houses, but they also went ahead and they were now getting in touch with the local dry cleaners to see if they would be interested in buying that innovation of them. It's a very simple retractable clothesline. Again, it's on Instagram and YouTube. If you just search Yogyakarta retractable clothesline, it has a sensor. The minute it senses rain coming in, the clothesline automatically retracts itself with all the clothes into shade. And the minute the sensor is dry, it moves back to the sun. The idea behind this concept is helping youth build innovation skills on their own so that they can solve the problems, not only the problems they see today, but the problems they're going to encounter across their lives, their communities, their families, and help Indonesia become truly an innovative nation. There's a quote which we really believe in, that if you put the power of youth and power of technology together, it can make things happen in an unimaginable way. Can we go to the last one? So a lot of people ask this question to us, that what does it do to drive innovation skills in our youth in the way we are currently structured in our schools, in our colleges, in our universities? How does it really work? The learnings which we can share with them post our experiences of running this program across multiple countries, and I'm talking more than 75 countries as of today, is that there is a need to evolve a new technology curricula. have online communities of practice which can support youth who would want to learn and engage with similar innovation skills and experiences. And of course, make sure that diversity and inclusion become a core component of that. Subsequently, it's also important that we offer a portfolio of programs to support the youth wherever they are in their journey. Let me share an example from India with you. What they've done is they've created tinkering laboratories in the schools. So that's like you have a biology lab, you have a physics lab, you have a chemistry lab. They have a lab which is called tinkering. What does tinkering really mean? Oh, well, you can come and work on anything you want. It's a space in the four walls of learning, but which allows the student to expand his knowledge much beyond what the curriculum demands. It allows the student to experiment, to create something with his or her own hands, like when I spoke about the retractable clothesline. It allows the student to understand, to empathize with the problem he or she sees around in the community, to work, tinker, or make. Maker is another word which we call tinkerer is something like a little junior than what possibly an evolved maker would be. So to learn, evolve, tinker, make, create a physical prototype, a smart prototype, which has a new age capability to work with smart automated systems. Take it back to their community, like the example of what you saw what Fina did. She took that entire prototype she had created called Jukutek back to her community and implemented it, and then subsequently move ahead and see what more needs to be done. So local youth solving local problems with new age technologies. Can we go to the... So that's it from my end, and happy to take any questions.
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Shweta, for your excellent presentation. Bapak Ibu, sudah jelas ya penjelasan dari Mrs. Shweta tentang skills for the future, skills apa yang dibutuhkan untuk abad 21 ya, 2020 tadi sudah dijelaskan. Untuk mempersingkat waktu, mungkin kita langsung pada sesi pertanyaan. Apa sudah ini ya mengetik di link yang sudah diberikan? Mungkin ditayangkan, panitia. Sudah diketik? Atau mau bertanya langsung ya? Mau bertanya langsung mungkin?
Thank you very much for the speaking about innovation. I just want to ask about what do you think about disruptive innovation? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for your question. Disruptive innovation is actually the new normal. It's a new way of life, which we all have to be ready with. A lot of us get used to working the way we've been working historically, with the kind of technology we've been working, in the kind of environment we've been working, with the type of customers we've been working. Disruption is something which we have to face eventually. Now, unfortunately, education as an industry is where disruption is reaching last, where the requirement is most. But more than that, if you look at disruption across industries, it's extremely prevalent. I'd spoken about a couple of examples before as well. Pick up any industry today, the way it is changing, the way it is working is so critical that unfortunately we are not able to change the way we are training our children who are going to apply for jobs into the same industries. We are not able to change the way we are making them learn. That is what is really required at this point in time. Because if we still continue learning in schools, the way at least I was learning when I was in school, it's not going to help us land any jobs. And employability or entrepreneurship, whatever path a child chooses, that's becoming extremely, extremely critical. Because if he's not equipped with new age skills, then there are going to be challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Shweta. Mungkin satu pertanyaan lagi sebelum kita menutup sesi dari Intel. Diberi kesempatan untuk satu pertanyaan lagi, satu saja. Oh iya, ini sudah ada di sini ya. Maybe you can choose.
That's the question.
The question that you want to answer.
So related to your presentation, to ensure technology empowers system leaders, have you a program to implement it to our office free of charge? If yes, I want to join from Human Resource Development. Ministry of Home Affairs. We do have a program with the Ministry of Education and Culture, where we are training youth across SMCAs. So they've identified 230 nodal SMCAs across Indonesia. So we selected SMCAs is because obviously the concern for employability was a little higher in SMCAs than SMRs. Most of the students in SMRs wanted to go ahead and pursue higher education, whereas SMCAs would be looking at the job market immediately after grade 12th. So in those 230 nodal SMCAs, we've trained the electronics teacher, and we've equipped them with all the paraphernalia required to engage with technology creation at the local level. And if you need, sorry, I didn't catch the name of the gentleman who asked the question, but if you need, we can, since you're from Home Affairs, it becomes extremely simple for us to connect you with the gentleman who we're dealing with in the Ministry of Education and Culture to see if there are any synergies. So yes, there are answers possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sudah cukup ya Bapak Ibu, karena keterbatasan waktu mungkin kita akan mengakhiri sesi dari Ibu Shweta pada kali ini. Mrs. Shweta, thank you for your interactive presentation. And before you leave the stage, we have something for you.
Mohon kepada Dr. Purwanto berkenan kiranya untuk menyerahkan cindera mata kepada narasumber. Bapak Sarjani boleh minta tolong. Dengan hormat kami mohon berkenan kiranya untuk memberikan cindera mata kepada narasumber kita kali ini, Ibu Shweta Khurana dari Intel. Baik, terima kasih banyak sekali lagi.
Thank you. Big applause once again to Mrs. Shweta. Ya, Bapak Ibu sekalian, demikian paparan dari Intel mengenai skills for the future. Nanti untuk materinya bisa dibaca kembali melalui, nanti bisa diunduh di alamat link yang nanti akan diberikan oleh panitia. Terima kasih, demikian dari saya. Kurang lebihnya mohon maaf. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih banyak untuk narasumber dan juga moderator. Baik, Bapak dan Ibu yang kami hormati,